Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, August 2nd. This is Africa 54.
Why is abuse of cough syrup increasing among South Africa's youth? How climate change and conflict are impacting Somalia's herders. And the Centers for Disease Control reverses indoor mask policy. We'll explain why.
German NGO rescue ship Sea-Watch 3 was busy with more migrant rescues on Monday. The ship is now carrying 263 migrants on board and is urgently seeking a port of safety, according to the head of mission of the German NGO. The humanitarian ship was one of two rescue ships that pulled 394 migrants from a dangerously overcrowded wooden boat in the Mediterranean overnight on Sunday, in an operation lasting about 6 hours. On Sunday afternoon, Sea-Watch crew members then rescued 27 more migrants, including 3 babies, from a boat in distress 95 nautical miles off Libya. A Reuters witness said the boat had departed from Sabratha in Libya, and migrants came from Cameroon, Guinea, Senegal, Mali, Gambia, Nigeria, Sudan, and Sierra Leone. Experts say South Africa is seeing growing drug addiction among young people during the pandemic. A medical research center found that some teenagers are abusing cough syrup that contains the drug Codeine. Franco Puglisi looks at the drug addiction problem and efforts to rehabilitate youth in this report from Johannesburg.
This once popular park in the Johannesburg neighborhood of Norwood is now littered with empty bottles of cough syrup left behind by young codeine drug abusers. More teenagers are succumbing to the addictive painkiller, says researcher Sifokazi Dada.
There is an escalating phenomenon of teenagers drinking lean, or what we also call CSAP, a mixture of cough syrup that contains codeine or alcohol and soft drinks such as Sprite. This is really worrying because teenagers are not even aware of the consequences of misusing codeine.
Substance abuse expert David Bayever at Wits University says codeine has a long-term impact on young people if taken in high dose, including depression, impaired memory, plus kidney and liver damage.
Youth in particular who are not fully developed yet. So their body weight and all of that is much different to what it is for an adult. But the worst part about it is that their brains are still developing. And the effect that it has on a developing brain is what then leads to the long-term harmful effect.
Concerned community members joined forces with the Norwood police to launch a campaign called Lean on Me. The goal, community leaders say, is to educate the youth about the dangers of codeine abuse.
We're an awareness campaign in order to make our community aware of the lean problem that we are facing in the Norwood precinct. We do marches, we go door to door, and it's important for us to inform our community, specifically parents, what to be on the lookout for and how to identify that your kid's involved with drugs.
The cough syrups are available over the counter in South Africa's pharmacies. The South African Pharmacy Council recently launched a codeine care program aimed at ensuring the safe and responsible use of the drug.
All pharmacies are linked and you have to give your ID number to obtain codeine-containing products. So then if I buy it at this pharmacy and tomorrow I go to another pharmacy, they will pop up a red light saying I already got it, and then obviously you won't issue that.
Unless the program is enforced, however, the syrups will be easy to obtain and children will be at risk of developing this harmful addiction. Franco Puglisi for VOA News, Johannesburg.
Nigeria is being hit by a surge in cholera cases focused on the country's north and adding to a public health crisis accompanied by a rise in COVID-19 cases. The state epidemiologist and deputy director of public health for Northern Economic Hub, Kano State, told Reuters that the rainy season is making it worse, while insecurity in the north, where the authorities are battling Islamist militants and armed criminals, is also hindering the authorities' ability to respond. 22 of Nigeria's 36 states, as well as the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, have suspected cases of cholera, according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. The illness, which is caused by contaminated water, can kill within hours if not treated. A new exhibition in the Kenyan capital aims to shed light on a long list of cases in which Kenyan police are accused of extrajudicial killings. Rod Almendo reports from Nairobi.
My name is Sarah Wangari. I live at Mathare. My age is 48 age. I born at Mathare.
In October 2017, police allegedly shot and killed Wangari's 19-year-old son, Alex, in this poor section of Nairobi. She says he had gone out to fetch water, but when he didn't come back, she went out to find him. Wangari says she found her son on the ground, dead, with 2 police officers next to his body, making phone calls. The shooting happened close to her home, and she still passes the spot every day.
When I see here, I feel bad. When I'm going to buy food to eat, I see here, I'm feeling very bad. I'm feeling very bad.
Wangari says she went to the police, but that they refused to open a case, alleging that her son was a gangster. Wangari is one of 16 alleged victims of police brutality featured in this exhibit, organized by the Mathare Social Justice Center. Their stories are also detailed in a book.
This exposition builds on the documentation we've already done as Mathare Social Justice Center to allow the family members who've been bereaved through state-sanctioned killings to tell their side of the story in ways that charge against the narrative that their children were suspects or thieves.
The center documented 99 police killings in Mathare and neighboring slums in the period from 2018 to 2021, and 803 killings across Kenya from 2013 to 2016. The exposition in an upmarket gallery is meant to provoke changes.
And so we need to assemble, we need to get as much cross-class solidarity as possible to enact more pressure on the state. The institutions like the Independent Police Oversight Authority, who also need pressure.
Police in Kenya rarely comment on allegations of police killings and brutality. VOA reached out to police officials several times with this story, but they did not make anyone available for an interview. The book that accompanies the exhibit is meant to replicate the message of the exposition. And Wangari says she wants the world to know what happens in Kenya.
I want those books to go everywhere, to America, to Japan, everywhere. That this thing, that this name for killing to stop.
The exposition is scheduled to run for 7 days. For Wangari, the photos that were taken are a permanent record of what happened, symbolizing hope that she's not alone and that help is on the way. Ruth Almendorf for VOA News, Nairobi.
Madagascar has arrested 21 more suspects, including 12 military personnel, in connection with a plot to kill President Andry Rajoelina and topple the government, according to a senior prosecutor. 6 people, one of them a French citizen, were arrested last month on suspicion of involvement in the plot following what officials described as a months-long investigation. The military personnel who were arrested include 5 generals from the army and the military police, 2 captains and 5 non-commissioned officers. 4 retired foreigners and 5 civilians were also arrested, some of whom were being held in police custody. Recent unrest in South Africa damaged hundreds of businesses, but property developers, retailers and entrepreneurs say they remain committed to the fast-growing consumer markets of its predominantly black townships. Maha Al-Badrawi reports.
When violent riots broke out in South Africa this month, Former soccer player Lucky Lechwati hoped his restaurant in the Soweto township would be spared. He says he's popular in the area and that he was using the fast food establishment, Grootman, to give back to the community. But his hopes were in vain.
They took like everything, including the toilet, the zincs, the water pipes, and the electric wires. They took everything.
His store was one of about 3,000 which were looted during the July riots, which killed 300 people, sparked by the former President Jacob Zuma handing himself in to start a 15-month jail term for contempt of court. Despite the losses caused by the recent unrest, property developers and retailers say they remain committed to the fast-growing consumer markets of its predominantly black townships, driven by rising consumer spending by the black middle class in areas that were disadvantaged for decades under white minority rule. Vukile Property Fund CEO Lawrence Rapp says they will forge ahead with a $6.1 million upgrade of the damaged Davytown Mall in Johannesburg.
We're definitely going to continue, to invest in the areas. I think strategically we are very committed to there. I think, we feel that this is where the majority of South Africans live. By bringing malls to them, you add tremendous value to the people's lives. And we can see it, if you can take away the cost of travel for a consumer, it puts a lot of disposable income back into their pockets.
But many small business owners like Lechwati don't have the financial elasticity to bounce back on their own. His damages come to over $27,000, around $2,000 of which he has recouped so far through private donations.
People are so generous. They are willing to help, and we're still waiting, for them to help because of, like now, I don't have money, I still want to hear from the government. Let's hope that, they are going to help because of this is something that was helping me to put, bread on the table.
The recent unrest was a major setback, but most are determined to take on such challenges and forge on due to the attractive profit margins still on offer.
Maha Al-Badrawi of Reuters with that report. The International Committee of the Red Cross is warning that a growing climate crisis combined with conflict is pushing herders in Somalia to abandon their way of life. Lucy Fielder has more.
For Ahmed Mohammed, it's getting harder to feed his animals. He's one of Somalia's herders. It's a community that, according to the International Committee of the Red Cross, are being pushed to abandon their way of life due to conflict and the climate crisis.
We lost 50 animals. There were 70. 50 died. And we're left with 20 camels. Some no longer have livestock. They lost them all. That's how it is, and we are surviving.
Erratic weather patterns, floods and droughts are making pastures harder to find. The ICRC said conflict, the global health crisis and recent locust infestations have made matters worse.
The climate change.
Abdullah Tagola is the ICRC's Economic Security Coordinator for Somalia.
We have to recall that since 3 decades or more, Somalia is in civil war, in conflict. This conflict has displaced thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. But now, Somalia is located in East Africa, the Horn of Africa, that is known to be, in terms of global warming, 2.5 times faster than the rest of the world. This has brought extreme weather events. These extreme weather events due to global warming, climate change, are droughts, floods, cyclones. All these factors now are more frequent, first, and are worse in terms of intensity in Somalia.
More than 30 climate-related hazards, including droughts and floods, have hit Somalia since 1990. That's a 3-fold increase on the 20-year period before. The recurrent nature of the climate shocks makes it hard for the herders to recover, the ICRC said. while conflict weakens their ability to adapt or find alternative grazing areas. The ICRC said it is supporting 11,000 families left in a precarious situation following a prolonged dry season this year.
That was Lucy Field of Reuters reporting. Some Nigerian companies are using coconut and palm shells to make charcoal briquettes in an effort to slow ongoing deforestation. Nigeria banned charcoal exports after a World Bank report showed the country lost nearly half of its forest cover in just a decade. Timothy Obiezu reports from Kuje, Nigeria.
Sorting through coconut shells before they are thrown into a burning pot. Nothing goes to waste at this coconut processing facility outside Abuja. Owner Emeka Ogweje says it all began 10 years ago.
We began thinking it was to say, okay, let our waste become the necessary energy to make fire. And this is where we have come.
The result is rich in carbon content, a prerequisite for fuel. It is cooled, ground, and manually molded into briquettes.
We intend to introduce several types of machines. Few amongst them is the molder, the cutter, and the drying system, a dehydrator that will bring these briquettes into a more solid form.
Ogweje's company, which makes products made from coconut, is one of many in Nigeria using coconut briquettes as fuel instead of wood charcoal. Experts say Nigeria's huge charcoal market causes major environmental repercussions. The country lost nearly half of its forest cover between 2007 and 2017 because of the charcoal trade, according to a World Bank report. The report predicted Nigeria's forests could totally disappear by 2047. Conservationist David Michael Terungwa, who founded the Global Initiative for Food Security and Ecosystem Preservation, says a lack of compliance with Nigeria's charcoal export ban is to blame for continued deforestation.
There is a lack of political will to end this practice in Nigeria. For the World Bank report of 2017, it is in our acts, the NESRA Acts of 2014, banning the production and export of charcoal in Nigeria. But I think the issue is compliance and compliance monitoring and enforcement by the regulatory agency.
Nigerian authorities have been encouraging tree planting to replace decimated forests. But experts say in the absence of adequate policing, Nigerians must make a conscious effort to use other alternatives to tree-derived charcoal for fuel. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, should presidents and prime ministers be investigated for alleged crimes after they leave office? Is this good for democracy? We'll discuss the deadly fallout from the jailing of former South African President Jacob Zuma. Our panel will look at countries that have done it, like France and Israel, as well as those grappling with that question. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
With the Delta variant of the coronavirus spreading in the United States, officials are instituting new mask guidance, and some employers and even restaurants are requiring proof of vaccination. Michelle Quinn reports.
The U.S. is struggling with a surge of cases of COVID-19, the disease caused by the coronavirus, thanks to the contagious Delta variant. 2 hospitals in San Francisco have seen more than 200 employees test positive. Most had been fully vaccinated, according to the New York Times. Over the weekend, Florida broke its one-day record of new cases with more than 21,000.
We are, in fact, in a very serious public health challenge here with a pandemic, with a virus that has an extraordinary capability of spreading rapidly and efficiently from person to person.
With 100 million Americans unvaccinated, officials are scrambling to respond. Last week, President Joe Biden announced federal workers must be vaccinated or face mandatory testing, a move some employee unions criticized as government overstepping workers' rights. Meanwhile, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, recommends that everyone, even the vaccinated, wear masks indoors in places where transmission is high, and the attending physician of Congress is mandating people in the House of Representatives wear a mask. Some lawmakers criticize the new rule, which doesn't affect the Senate.
The CDC has become a political arm of the administration. It wants to control every element of our life.
Public health recommendations can infringe on people's personal liberty, says Dr. Fauci, but not following them can infringe as well.
The fact is, if you get infected, even if you are without symptoms, you very well may infect another person who may be vulnerable, who may get seriously ill. So in essence, you are encroaching on their individual rights because you're making them vulnerable.
The changing rules may be having some effect. The pace of vaccination in the U.S. jumped 21% last week compared with 3 weeks ago, CNN reports. The spike in inoculations is even higher in some southern states, which have some of the lowest vaccine rates. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
U.S. President Joe Biden says that all federal employees will now have to prove to their COVID-19 vaccination status, and those who are unvaccinated will face numerous restrictions. This comes as major U.S. businesses require employee vaccinations and as U.S. health experts urge even the vaccinated to mask up again due to the virulent Delta variant, now the most prevalent in the United States. VOA's Laura Bowman has our story.
President Joe Biden is requiring federal government employees to attest to their vaccination status. Those who don't will have to wear masks at all times, test weekly for COVID-19, socially distance, and generally not travel for work. Federal contractors could face similar restrictions. The president also said the U.S. military could soon require vaccinations.
Masking is one defense against the spread of COVID-19. But make no mistake, vaccines are the best defense against you getting severely ill from COVID-19. The very best defense.
The president's words come after U.S. health authorities earlier this week told fully vaccinated Americans to start wearing masks again indoors in regions where the coronavirus is spreading rapidly. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention saying the Delta variant can be spread by the vaccinated.
So we felt it was important for the vaccinated people to understand that if they happen to be one of those breakthrough infections, which was more likely in areas with a huge amount of transmission and disease, that those people could potentially pass it on to somebody, a loved one.
These fresh guidelines came after the agency told vaccinated Americans 2 months ago that they could go without masks. The CDC also recommended this week that all students, teachers, and staff at schools for kindergarten through 12th grade wear masks, regardless of vaccination status. But not everyone is sold on the new rules, especially when it comes to education.
A one-size-fits-all approach here is probably not going to work, and we're going to need to make sure that every community is given the options to do what's best for their kids.
And this California Republican lawmaker isn't happy either.
This is just the beginning of a set, because school's going to start coming back. They're going to shut school down again. This is about control.
Meantime, many businesses are now mandating that employees be vaccinated, with Facebook, Google, and Netflix saying this week they will require many workers to get shots. This follows similar decrees made by local governments, including New York State and over 600 universities in the U.S.
I think it's terrific. I mean, unfortunately, we have reached a point in the pandemic where we simply have to get a lot more people vaccinated than have been willing to do so under the present conditions.
Roughly 56% of Americans over age 12 in the U.S. are fully vaccinated. Laurel Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Lebanon is running desperately short of life-saving medicines to treat cancer, heart ailments, or even basic vitamins needed by expectant mothers. It is all a direct result of Lebanon's deepening political and economic crisis, which has led to severe shortages of hard currency and fuel. Anchal Vora has this report for VOA from northern Lebanon.
Hamid Minkara owns Nadine Pharmacy in the heart of Tripoli, Lebanon's second-largest city. But he has locked its doors after running out of medicines for chronic conditions.
It's not humanitarian anymore, the situation. So we feel sorry for ourselves, for our profession, and for people and patients.
No more antibiotics, nothing for patients suffering from hypertension or diabetes. Supplies have stopped, he says, since companies that import the medicines do not have enough dollars to pay their exporters. The director of a hospital in Tripoli talks about a slew of challenges he is facing.
It's empty. It's empty now. We are on the auxiliary.
No electricity and little fuel to run the generators. This means he cannot run life-supporting equipment like the ventilators and has had to stop taking in critical care patients.
Lebanon, from being the capital of hospitals in the Middle East or the hospital of Middle East, now we are a dispensary now. We are degrading we are plunging.
Mamari also worries about losing his staff, many of whom have already resigned.
Rita Hoyak, a physiotherapist at the hospital, said she is seeing an exodus of her colleagues.
A big number of my colleagues have gone. It's around 20 or more. Most of them have traveled to Arab countries, such as Saudi, Qatar, Dubai. The salary is much higher than here, sometimes 3 or 4 times higher.
According to the Lebanese Order of Physicians, at least 1,000 registered doctors have left the country since the economic crisis gripped the nation in 2019. 2 years ago, Lebanon erupted in protests and called for ouster of the ruling elite. But the political class has clung to power, and many citizens believe the leadership has been slow to usher in reforms, including those that the International Monetary Fund has set as preconditions for loans to bail out the country. For the Lebanese, in the meantime, it is a struggle to survive with no end in sight. Anchal Vora for VOA News, Tripoli, Lebanon.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.